I can hold this down. All right, so here's our controls on the handlebar, okay? This is a parking brake lever, okay? So all it does is locks your brakes in. It's basically, this is a brake here, and this is a brake here on both sides of the handlebar, left and right. So this just basically locks and activates those, okay? This is on off, green on or running, and red kills the engine. Or if you try and start it in red, it won't start. This is our clutch lever, okay? And this is essentially is OPC, they call it, or operator presence control. The machine won't do anything if you don't have this held down. But you
won't even start?
No. Well, it'll start, yes. You must pull in the clutch lever first and then bring this down, not the other way around, or you'll stretch this cable out, okay? It has to work that way. Clutch lever first, then red lever. Over here is our transmission speeds, our ground speeds. I'm just going to press this stick on there. Sometimes you don't always on there that great. Okay, so whenever you need to change speeds, you must use your clutch. Okay, so like so, and you would shift, and then if you're going to start going, you let your clutch out. Okay. Over here, I'm going to push this down so you can see it. In the center of the steering column, this lever allows you to adjust the height of your handlebars up and down. Okay. The lever on this side, this is your PTO engagement. Okay, that's how you turn on the PTO to engage your implement, which is separate from your ground speeds. Okay, you essentially, to engage it, whether the handlebars on this side or the other side, you always push or pull it toward the engine. Okay, and that engages it. If you, I don't know if you can see it that well, but if you look over here, normally when this thing is not engaged, there'll be a bit of a gap here, which you can notice. And when it is engaged, this will be much closer to this piece right here. So it's kind of one way you can tell. But essentially, if you want to check to see if it's engaged or not, I mean, you can always just move it away from the engine.
Okay.
Depending. So let's see, on that side, yeah, you'd either push or pull it. Other controls, this is a differential lock. Okay, I'm going to turn this off for a minute. But basically, so the machine turns super easy in its native state. If you needed extra traction in deep soil or something, or even perhaps if you were in soil and you wanted to try and stay very straight, you could pull this back and it will lock the wheels together.
Okay.
So you cannot turn, your steering brakes are not able to be used or not effective when you have this locked in this position. Okay. Yep, and now we've got over here is forward and reverse. Okay. From this position, when the handlebars on this side, this is forward, and this is reverse. When you move the handlebars 180 degrees, it's the opposite. Okay. This would be forward, and this would be reverse when the handlebars on the other side of the machine. Okay. The throttle controls engine speed. This is what allows us to rotate the handlebars, which you first have to pop these off, and take them out of position, and then swing around like this, and then rotate your handlebars if you want. If you don't want to rotate your handlebars all the way, you can also offset. So your handlebars left and right. For example, if you're rotary plowing and you wanted to walk over like this.
I see.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. And so it'll offset left or right, but for rotary plowing, you don't want to offset to the right because it throws everything.
Okay.
So some of these controls require clutch always, or you'll screw up the transmission eventually. That would be, so the things that you need to use clutch on are your gear selectors, transmission speeds here, PTO engagement or disengagement, and forward and reverse. All 1, 2, 3. All of these things you must use your clutch on. Okay. Everything else up here doesn't matter. Doesn't require clutch. Okay.
Those are your brakes.
Yep. That's our brake lever. So if we're going into, like, if this is driving, you can hold one down, it will turn the machine for you. Okay?
Like a skid steer.
Yeah. And the brakes are going to need a little bit of time to kind of brake in. You can adjust brakes if you need to tighten or loosen them to your personal preference.
Okay.
There's a lot of these adjusting bolts for your cables. This is a 13mm lock nut. If you back this out, you can then spin this in, usually with your hand, if not 11mm if it's this. If you bring it in, it's going to create slack and will make it looser. If you back this nut out, the bolt out, it's going to tighten it up. Okay. And that works the same on all these different types of adjusters. Okay. On the clutch should have a small amount of movement, which you can actually see in there. I'm pulling this sheath of the cable toward the engine, and then I'm working this the opposite way. So you kind of see there's a little bit of free play in there, a little bit of movement.
You want that.
It's important that you want to have some movement in there, especially when you move the handlebars around to the other side, which generally tightens things up a little bit, just make sure there's at least a little bit of movement on there.
Okay.
That's pretty much it all for all the controls up here on the handlebars.
Show me once more time how to start it.
Okay, yeah, I was going to pull it back and I'll just show you the front of it. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, you're there. All right, here we go. All right, so fuel on off, okay? It's got arrows showing you. On, it's pointing to on, and it also says on right there. That would be off. This choke is off. This is pointing to on, so that would be on. Pretty much when the engine itself is not warm, it's going to probably need a choke to start. So to start it, remember I said up here you had to have this in the green, okay? Or it won't start, okay? That's got to be in the green. Once you do that, then you can start it, and I'll choke it anyway. And that's pretty much it. So you gotta turn it off. You can either flip that lever or you can turn the key off. They'll both do the same thing. Okay. Since we're looking at the engine, a couple of things. Over here is where you can drain the oil to change it. It's got one of these on both sides. This is the more accessible side though. So usually the side we use. This would be where you fill and check the oil level. Check it with the machine level or the engine level. So something about like this, and it should be filled to the maximum. So when you open this, either oil should be all the way out to the edge, or it should even drip out a little bit. Okay. This, let me move it around. See if you can see it.
Hydraulics?
Yeah. So here's our transmission and clutch.
Like wrestling an alligator once.
Yeah. So you can kind of see it right behind the battery box, that black knob. So here's where you can check the transmission fluid. Okay. And so with the machine level, you before you run the machine, you can bring this up and then just make sure the oil's within the two marks on there.
Okay.
If it was the tiniest bit over, very small amounts, not the end of the world, but you don't want to try and overfill it. It can ruin the seals or blow up the seals. Let me spin it back around. I'll show you one more thing. So, speaking of that, there's that fluid. There's a filter for it, and
I can come around.
maybe you can swing it around.
Okay.
So you have to kind of look right up in there.
See it.
That is white filter. There's a sticker on it that says 30 hours, and I got a document that tells you this. 30 hours, you need to change that. But beyond that, once per year, 100 hours, whatever occurs first, you change the fluid and you change that filter. And I bought you a filter to have. I included it, so you got one.
Is there an hour meter on it?
Yeah. Hour meter is on top of the air filter, which, here, I'll show you that. So right here. As an hour meter. And it's also a tack. You just hit the little button and it toggles back and forth. But, I mean, we don't really use the tack. It just happens to have it.
Okay.
So air filter's underneath here. There is wire running up through here for this, so if you ever do need to remove it, don't just pull this off and jerk it. Just kind of pull it up gently and note that there's a wire. That's how this thing works. It's connected down here to the spark plug wire, and it just loops around it and senses the signal. Let's see. Anything else on the tractor? That's your weight hangers. In case you need those for using the root plow, you can hang barbells on it. Yeah, those are of course your foam fill tires. You'll notice at some point you'll see a nail in it, and that's normal. It's part of the filling process. They have to have a way for the air to evacuate while they fill it with foam. Okay, and you may get a little bit of, like if you notice any kind of stuff right here, some of the foam that and it dries. I noticed a little more on the other side this morning, but
No worries.
PTO studs, these down here. I recommend make sure these are very tight. Every at least say 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
Make sure. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with them loosening, regularly or anything, but it's possible it could happen. So it's just a good maintenance thing to do, to check them every couple months, 6 to 8 weeks or something, and they should just be very tight. Not trying to break anything, but
Sure.
I tighten them almost as tight as I could.
Hand tight, or use an air compressor?
Oh no! Don't use
Just
that on
hand tight.
Don't use that on anything.
Okay.
Yep. Hand tight. Yeah, you like it. That's a 3/4 19 millimeter, and so you know, put a lot of muscle to it and just make sure it's real tight. Just in case you ever took this off, these washers are lock washers, but they're curved on one side and have a depression on the other. The curved side or the hump needs to come out because that's how the whole lock component to that works. It presses in against it and it presses back, and that's what keeps it tight. Okay. If you put them on the wrong way, then it's not going to stay tight. You can keep this thing looped up. Right now, there's some grease in it. The guy who works for me, but I quit using grease myself. It's not wrong. It's just I find other things that work a little better. Like there's lubricant called fluid film. Essentially, you just have some lubricant in here. It's going to make it a lot easier for the male quick hits to fit in here. Okay. And you notice you've got these 3 teeth here. So occasionally the teeth from the implement in this will match up just perfectly, and it will only go so far, and that's because the teeth need to move just ever so slightly. The sides of these teeth are tapered, and normally if you kind of bang it in and out of there, you can get it to then move a little bit and fit. Alternatively, if I know it's like dead on, I might even stick my finger in here and push it just a little bit.
Okay, so that's how you turn it.
Or depending on the implement, and sometimes it can be hard to turn this. It just depends. So that's not always.
Can you turn the implement?
Depends on the implement, but most of them you can. It just depends on how you do turn it. But of course, the other thing you could do if the tractor's running, you can just engage the PTO and let it spin, and it will probably stop at a different position. But I mean, I normally just try and move this.
And then that simply just slides down, locks it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So once you put it in like this.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yep.
That's much regular.
Or either way. I mean, actually, I think goes a little farther. It can go either way though. And actually, I think it goes a little farther that way than it does.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know. Actually, does it go?
It goes a little further that way.
I think it goes
the other way.
Yeah, I think it goes further this way. Yep. Yeah, it definitely does. You can tell. Yep. So, but either way would work. It's not going to pop back out. I mean, I've used both ways, but I tried to do.
Do you have a regular tractor, or you just use this for everything?
At my place? I've got a small Kubota, just like a 20 horsepower, but the only thing I do with it is move pallets around. Yeah. Move for our business. So I maintain everything with this stuff. I like it a lot. Whoever's using this is gonna be rotating the handlebars, but if this thing stays out and gets any water on it, if water gets down in here and no one ever rotates this, so see the shaft goes right into this socket here, okay? Fits down in there. If this is not occurring on some regular basis, it can seize up and basically seize, and then will not be able to move, okay? We lube it up. That's the whole point of this whole spring. It's got a spring pushing this washer onto an O-ring, which you can see that black O-ring, which is supposed to help keep the moisture out of there. So just FYI, you should keep, you should lube this at some interval, or if you're regularly rotating your handlebars, I mean, that'll pretty much take care of it. It's usually for people when they have a tiller and that's it, or something like that, and they never rotate the handlebars, and over time, these would seize up. That's very common. Let's see what else tractor-wise. I'm going to send you an email late today or first thing in the morning with a lot of information too. And you got a bunch of manuals, and I've got electronic copies of other things I'll give you, so you'll have a lot of information too.
Okay, great.
I'll feel like you have to remember everything.